Welcome to the primitive data type classes, part 2. Let's start with the integer class. In this class, we will understand the format method and the valueOf method that accepts a string to integer argument. The format method will basically convert an integer to a string. We do this by applying the format method to a variable which will return the output as a string. The valueOf method is quite the opposite. It converts a string to an integer. In the code, we use the valueOf method of the integer class and pass the random number string as the parameter, resulting in an integer conversion. Now let's understand the long class in Apex. Here we will only look at the intValue method. Long values are of 64 bits, while the integers are 32 bits. What intValue method does is, it converts a 64-bit long value to a 32-bit integer. The approach is to use intValue method on a long data type variable that then returns an integer value. Moving on to the ID class in Apex. For this class, we will discuss the getSObjectType method, toFifteen method, and the valueOf method that accepts 2 arguments. If you ever come across a situation where you have a bunch of Salesforce IDs but don't really know what SObject it belongs to, well, getSObjectType can help you fix that. In our code, we have an unknown ID whose SObject we are unsure of. As discussed, we can use the getSObjectType method on the unknown ID variable and return the SObjectType. Notice that the outcome SObjectType uses the schema class. Salesforce IDs are by default 18 characters and case sensitive. Let's break down the format of an ID. The first 3 characters are prefix values unique to each SObject. Couple of examples for standard SObjects are as follows. The last 3 characters are constant suffixes, while the remaining characters are the unique record identifiers that change upon each record creation for a given SObject. The toFifteen method basically converts the 18-character ID to 15 characters. It does this by removing the constant suffix from the relevant ID. Here's an example where we used the toFifteen method on a lead ID which returns a 15-character string. Let's assume we have a Salesforce ID that we pass to an external system, and the external system somehow disturbs the casing of the ID. Now if we use that disturbed ID and look for a record in Salesforce, we won't find it, as the IDs are case sensitive. To solve this issue, we can pass the ID to a valueOf method. We do this by passing the ID as the first parameter and setting true or false for the restoreCasing parameter. Let's look at the code. Here we have an ID that is screwed. Now we use the valueOf method of an ID class and pass the ID as the first parameter and true as the second parameter in order to restore the casing. As a result, we get the restored ID. Number 4 on our list is the string data type class with methods such as reverse, capitalize, contains method that accepts a subString parameter, isNotBlank method that accepts an inputString argument, and a split method that accepts a regular expression. Simply put, reverse method is used to reverse a given string. Within our code, we use the reverse method on a string variable and receive a reversed string as a return value. Use the capitalize method if ever in a situation where we have to capitalize the first letter of a word or a sentence. We do this by using the capitalize method on any given string and retrieve the expected output. The contains method of the string class is used to check if a certain substring is present within the whole string. To accomplish this in code, we get the string on which the substring needs to be checked. Then we use the contains method and pass the substring as the parameter. As a result, we get either true or false. Keep in mind that the contains method is case sensitive. So if we pass the fence substring with capital F, we get false result. Let's pretend we want to check if the name field from the account SObject is not blank. This would return true, but only if the value for that field is not whitespace, blank, or null. For instance, here we have a string with a value that is neither whitespace, blank, or null. So if we use the isNotBlank method of the string class and pass the greetings variable as the parameter, we receive true as a result. However, the output would be false if the value was whitespace, blank, or null. Split is used to convert a string to a list. Here on our screen, we have a string of IDs that are separated by comma. What we can do now is use the split method by passing the comma as the regular expression parameter, which in return will automatically convert the string into a list. Here's the code for using the split method on a string variable by passing the separation indicator. Do check out the documentation for more similar methods like this. Last but not the least, we will take a quick look on the SObject class in Apex. For this class, we'll discuss the addError method that accepts the error message as the argument, the isClone method, and the clear method. For instance, let's pretend a user is about to save an account record. This behavior executes an Apex trigger. The trigger does some validation checks to see if the data is valid. Now let's assume that there is an issue with the data that the user has entered and we want the user to fix it. In that case, we can use the addError method with the error message. This by default will stop the DML insertion and show an error message on the UI. Let's look at the code. First things first, we loop through all the records using the trigger.newContext variable. Thereafter, we check if the description field is blank. If so, we use the error method on the current looping account record and pass the error message. Check out the documentation page for more use cases on the addError method. Apex allows cloning an SObject record using the clone method, but the question is, how do we differentiate between the original and the clone? For example, here we retrieve an account using a SOQL query. Then we use the clone method on the account record and pass 4 Boolean parameters. The first parameter is for if we want to copy the ID field from the original record. The second parameter is if we want this to be a deep clone, which includes the lookup fields from the original record. The third parameter is for preserving the read-only timestamps, such as created date, created by, last modified by, and the last modified date. The final parameter is if we want to copy over the auto number fields. Thereafter, we can use the isClone method on the record to confirm if it's a clone or not. Finally, we have few account fields with their values. Our task is to make it null or empty. Let's think of these fields retrieved using SOQL query and stored into a variable. For a normal user, the process to clearing fields would be to clear each field individually. But here's how legends do it using the clear method. Before I leave you guys to yourself, I would like you to practice on what you learned using the following scenarios. Your job is to determine what method of a class can be used and what could be the syntax. This has been Primitive Data Type Classes Part 2. If you found this video helpful, please do like and subscribe. Don't forget to comment your practice answers in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, be safe and take care. Peace.